has, a stroke or MS or ALS or these cases that are really severe and they have the means and they want to try something really far out, which would be something that's been being used for 16 or 17 years, maybe 20. These doctors are doing amazing things with MS, ALS, you name the diagnosis, but it does take quite a lot of cells. And what I learned about the stem cells, now these are real stem cells that are come from Wharton's jelly, which is inside the umbilical cord of cesarean births that they have checked thoroughly for any kind of infectious disease. And so there's no damage to the baby, it's after the birth, and it's all sterile. There have been no adverse events, no adverse effect. And I think what I learned about that is that, if there's multiple people or there's multiple diagnoses that need to be treated, obviously the more amount, the more cells, the better. But it's just as costly to take 50 million versus 300 million cells, whatever that plate is. So it behooves you if you have multiple people or whatever. So that was news for me. It is expensive, but it's an option that I think will continue to grow. And unfortunately, I don't think that the FDA will ever really approve of that because of the fear. But every other country is really making leaps and bounds in this arena. So it's unfortunate that we'll have to leave town, but it's still an option out there. On a brighter note, there are some things that we can add to our repertoire. There is something called Quinton water, Quinton. This water is like a mineral water that is basically like seawater. They have a hypertonic and an isotonic solution. The isotonic tastes just like water, and the hypertonic tastes like salt water. It comes from the same area that plankton is hanging out and has quite a lot of basically exactly what we need as far as trace minerals and nutrients and balance. And it is a little vial of literally a shot that you can put in any orifice if it's the isotonic one, but a nice inexpensive way to help rebuild someone's mineral count and give them sort of a 30-day trial. Just while you're thinking about it, let them try it. You guys, there are 2 places you can create an account. One is Quicksilver Scientific, which I'm sure you've heard of. He has a nice detox program, Chris Shade. And then the other is called Water and Wellness. And since you are all practitioners, you can join, and then it won't be very expensive for you and your family and whatever your rate is for your patients. The other thing that I was confirmed about is something called deuterium depleted water. So you should and will be hearing a lot about this. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen, and hydrogen, as you know, is what keeps us alive. It is the smallest on the periodic table, and with it we create life and water and all of those things. Back to the mitochondria. Over time, we've not paid much attention to this thing called deuterium because they didn't think it was a big deal. But when we look at our water supply on Earth, when they measure for every million parts of hydrogen, there are 150 parts per million of deuterium. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen, so it looks exactly like hydrogen, which has a proton and an electron, but it also has a neutron, which makes it slightly heavier than hydrogen. So they call it hydrogen's twin brother that's a little fatter, like the fat twin brother. And what happens is, over time, as we drink the water that's on our Earth, and as we eat the food and the fruit and the things that have quite a lot of deuterium, so anything with a big volume of water, like fruit and water in general, will, over time, just like heavy metals, accumulate in our bodies. And this heavier water gets stuck in the mitochondria and kind of clogs up the function of the mitochondria, which blocks our ability to create energy and ATP. So it's no wonder that as we age, we start to slow down. And here's another factor that could be playing a role in why our patients are tired, in why they're not able to clear toxins, and in why they just don't feel well. So how do we make deuterium depleted water? It comes in glaciers. Where they found is that in Siberia, there are people whose average age is 130, and when they looked at the water, they just kind of stumbled upon the fact that it had a very low deuterium count, and it was about 86 or under 90 parts per million. In nature, it's also found in glaciers and other areas where the water freezes and is exposed to UV light. So that contraction and expansion is also a way for them to deplete deuterium. Well, we need a little bit of deuterium to grow, which is why it's in fruit and some of these things, and children need deuterium. But again, as we age, we don't need quite as much. And there is a website you can read about It's called the ddcenters.org, and that company is in California, and it was spearheaded by a doctor named Laszlo Boras, who is no longer with their company because as they're having growing pains, they're not able to assist their patients quite as well as he would like, so he's moving on. But they're still doing good work, and they are treating patients who have chronic conditions as well as patients who have cancer. So what they're doing is lowering the deuterium content slowly and trying to change it up on a regular basis so that the body doesn't gain any insight and figure it out. Okay.
So you can measure
So they're measuring it, but you can measure the levels. They're also coming out with tests to measure the levels. Now here's the caveat. It's expensive, and it requires them to have every bit of water that they're drinking through the day be deuterium depleted water. So your coffee, your drinks, your, whatever you're cooking with, deuterium depleted water.
Anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then no fruit or anything like that.
And backing off fruit. So that's where now in my world of the keto and the fasting world, they're also now taking claim to say, well, that's why keto and fasting works. Because essentially you're actually drying out the cell, taking away all the carbs, taking away the fruit. And they could be onto something, they could be right. So naturally you are depleting deuterium. And if that's the case, then wow, we might have stumbled onto something. So the book that got me interested a few years ago was by a guy named Gabor Somali, and it's Somolyi, and it's called How to Defeat Cancer. It's a very small book of about 100 pages. He has multiple studies now out 20 years of how he's helping patients with cancer, prostate. He has some beautiful studies, and all he's done is help to deplete the deuterium. So it could be that we're onto something, but in the meantime, the only problem is that it's very expensive. So the company I'm using is called Light Water. They have a concentrated bottle that your patients or your family can dilute. So basically it's really low. It's probably like 10 parts per million, and you would basically splash or dilute 1 to 2 or 1 to 4, depending on how sick the patient was. If you are healthy and you don't have anything going on, or at least you don't know about it, then maybe you would need to do it maybe a month out of the year, right, where you're really strict. If you have someone who's very sick, they're probably going to need to do it for at least 3 months pretty heavily. And I think it's worth the while to at least get them started, anything non-toxic that we can offer that would help them to feel better, that with the dilution of this bottle can be done in a reasonable manner. Like, they're going to spend a lot of money on supplements and things, just as you know, people are turning towards natural medicine and trying to find other ways to feel well. I think anything that they can do towards this will be helpful. So that was a great experience for me because I got to meet the doctor. He's a scientist who created reverse osmosis. So another pearl that I got is that if you know anybody who has a reverse osmosis system on their entire house, this gentleman said, please have them stop using it. He said the filter, and the reason why when he created the filters for reverse osmosis is that you didn't really have a very good return. It wasn't very much water that you got. It took a long time to make that RO water. Well, in our natural American state, we like more, faster, better, right? But when we do that, the filter that is the carbon filter that's helping to make it work is now becoming a cesspool for bacteria. And so he strongly advised that if you have an entire house filter of RO, to stop using it. So he recommended an over-the-counter filter that I can't remember the name of, but I will get to you. But slower sometimes is better. Again, another big lesson for me, because I like to do everything fast. So I'm not kidding when I say I've learned so much this year. A lot of things are coming at me. I'm like, oh gosh, yes, I heard that. Yes, I know that. Okay, I hear it. So less is more, So he taught me something new, and he also taught me that I was recommending Berkey filter, and I was recommending for patients who were like, okay, well, what is affordable? What can I get at Bed Bath & Beyond? For the longest time, I was saying smart water. Zero water. And again, he was like, eh. So it's just, these are water fanatics. This is all they do. And so I finally got my hands on somebody who doesn't have some sort of MO trying to sell something that he made specifically, and that he's heavily invested in reverse osmosis, and that is what his baby has been. So I feel strongly that I could trust him.
Also alkaline? Talk about that.
He did talk about alkaline water and again kind of poo-pooed the idea. And so why does Kangen water work for people? Why is it that you have people who are saying, but I'm getting great relief? It could be placebo effect. 40% of medicine is placebo. Back to the mind, and that the thoughts matter. And you guys have seen those experiments that if this red pill and this blue pill, this red one's gonna save you, and that's what we believe, that's the winner, and it will. However, as you know, and as I was taught, and I've gone back and forth on this because the alkaline water people will help to convince you, that the body's blood pH will be constant, that the body is so good at keeping that within, such a tight level. However, eating foods and drinking water that has lemon or apple cider vinegar will make your urine alkaline, which is a very important piece. So my only issue with alkaline water, and I've said it to my family and patients, is that when we drink alkaline water all the time, you're stopping the stomach acid from being able to digest and break down a lot of the foods and the drinks that we're eating to try to get the nutrients. And remember, the purpose of why we're even eating any of this food is to get the nutrients from the sun, right? The energy. So if I'm blocking that, then that's not a good idea. So if they want to drink alkaline water outside of the time right before they eat, great. Otherwise, I would say maybe just not a half an hour to an hour before they eat. Alkaline foods, there's a list of things which mostly contain green veggies, right? Which hopefully if people are drinking juices, it's mostly green juice and not the fruits. And again, maybe it's the deuterium. But I think the reason Kangen and some of these other companies are doing well is, and they'll say it even on the bottle, is they're creating hydrogen. So that's the other big takeaway that I got. Again, we've been selling hydrogen tabs. We actually have inhaled hydrogen at the office. So hydrogen is an amazing way to help give someone a little bit of extra energy. Whatever extra hydrogens are not used will be converted to water. And so the tablets are an easy way to get it to really raise the parts per million very quickly. Obviously the inhaled is not going to be as much, but I liked that better than just giving them oxygen, and I felt it was doing more for the patients, so that's why I ordered that machine, even though it's costly. But it is a great anti-inflammatory, and in Japan, when you have a heart attack or a stroke, the first thing they put you on when you walk into the hospital is inhaled hydrogen. They're using it IV, they're using it every way they can. So it is a very cost-productive way to help somebody with energy if you're just looking for something else to try on and consider. So reading about hydrogen would be a great Christmas gift to yourself. So it just was awesome. And then the final thing that I learned about at the conference was quantum physics, which has perplexed me since I heard about it. And at this point, I'm starting to accept that I might never know how or why, but I accept that I'll get to the same result and that I'm okay with that. And so I'm letting go of having to know and getting to the root of how that one works. And I'm just accepting that back to the thoughts matter. And I'm learning to try to help my patients to say, look, let's do more visualizing, let's do more emotional tapping into and seeing myself at the end, seeing them at the end, seeing what they want to look like and feel like when they're well. Because we all have the ability to change our mind, and the number one thing that we have the only bit of control over are our thoughts. So I want to thank you for letting me come to the conference and talk about all the things that I love, and I am so happy that New Orleans is growing in this field, and that I'm sure you guys are witnessing more and more people are waking up and coming to know that the body is so amazing, and these spontaneous remissions are real, and that if we can help to supply them with information as well as a little bit of timing to get them catapulted to do what they need to do, and we can unblock the things that are blocked and pull the poisons and the toxins, then the body's going to do what it already knows how to.